Dive into the pulse of Bills football with Turf to Tape, where veteran sideline reporters Sal Capaccio and film room guru Erik Turner deliver a one-of-a-kind podcast experience, combining Sal's unparalleled access to players and coaches with Erik's razor-sharp film breakdowns. The show bridges the gap between casual fans and hardcore enthusiasts. This is Turf to Tape.
This is Turf to Tape, presented by Thin Man Brewery. I'm your host, Erik Turner, as always, joined by my man, Sal Capaccio from WGR. Sal, good afternoon. How are we doing today? It's Wednesday. We're a couple days past the game. I think we got to kind of digest how that game unfolded and how the last two losses by the Bills have unfolded. How are you doing today, buddy?
Doing pretty good. It's always tough, right, to get that taste out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And when you've been around a team that's been successful and is used to winning, and you have two losses in a row, it's not uncommon because they've done this. I shouldn't say not uncommon. It's not unprecedented because they had the same thing last year, weeks 4 and 5, with Baltimore and Houston. But I think what stings here is you have the week to think about it and kind of really stew over it a little bit if you're a fan. And obviously, you know, people are trying to grasp at whatever they can to figure out what's wrong. But that's why we do this, right? That's why we go out there and say, hey, here's what we've seen. This is what I can tell you from what I saw on the sidelines and people I've talked to and press conferences. And this is what Erik does watching the film and say, here's why things happen. And what we like to do on this show for everybody is kind of bring it back to a good space where we can kind of have a discussion about here's what went wrong and here's why, and here's how to fix it.
Yeah. And, you know, rewatching the film of this game, it was tough, but for me, that's the therapy. That is the ration where I can come up with the rationale and why things happen and how they can do some things to change. And this was a tough one, 24-14 loss to the Falcons. I think everyone knew it was a tough matchup for the Bills team. I think everyone knew there were going to be struggles against a run game like we've seen, you know, this year so far. I just didn't think we'd see the frustration and the rattling of Josh Allen when it came to the offense. I think the game plan, and I'll let you talk about, you know, who ran that game plan and set up that strategy against the Bills offense and Josh Allen, but it was aggressive. They weren't afraid to attack. They weren't afraid of the Bills' weapons. They played fast. They blitzed a ton, and it really frustrated the Bills' offense. On top of the other side, having stars like Bijan Robinson and Drake London just totally tear apart the Bills defense. Yeah.
So on the Bills offensive side, you know, they were facing a Falcons defense that we knew going into the game. I tweeted this out the day of the game that they blitz more than any team in the league. 44% of dropbacks. That's an insane high number, Erik.
Yep.
The next closest team was 38.5%, the Minnesota Vikings, just to give you an idea of how much they blitz. And when I put that stat out there, a lot of people said, no, I don't think wrong, said, well, wait a minute. You don't want to blitz Josh Allen. He's really good against the blitz, right? And that's right. Historically, Josh has been very good. But let's remember who the Falcons defensive coordinator is. It's Jeff Ulbrich. Jeff Ulbrich was the Jets defensive coordinator for 4 years before he became the interim head coach for a little while. And Josh, that's the one team we always would point to that he'd have a little bit of trouble against, right? With some of the things that they would do. He knows Josh intimately. He knows the Bills offensive line pretty well with that cast of characters, even Joe Brady, you know, over the last couple of years. So I think familiarity right there helped Jeff Ulbrich. But the other part is the Falcons had a bye week. And this is what happens in bye weeks. You get in the lab and you say, we got 2 weeks to dial something up. You don't think Jeff Ulbrich from the Jets, who Josh Allen had beaten and, you know, was in the division with for that many years, didn't want to make sure that his team was ready for the league MVP to come to his house on a national television night and have some things up his sleeves? Of course, that is not an excuse for how the Bills handled it. No doubt. But I think Jeff Ulbrich and the Atlanta Falcons, I want to give them a lot of credit for coming up with a game plan and a scheme. And they stayed to who they were, Erik. They blitzed. They blitzed the heck out of them. The Bills had trouble with interior pressure, I thought, more than anything in this game. But they had a lot of different ways to go about it. And use some exotic blitzes, especially when you're in a passing situation and it's obvious passing situation. And then on the other side of the ball, I think that Bills zone defense just got crushed by, hey, run 10 yards and turn around and I'll find you from Michael Penix to Drake London. It wasn't until they really started playing more man-to-man defense and they said, we can't let that happen, where Penix didn't have many other options and the Bills played better.
When it goes to the offense, it's so frustrating as a fan. And I imagine the players are feeling that way when they rewatched this game, because as you said, they were expecting a blitz happy team.
Mhm.
They were expecting the Falcons to run a lot of those 5-man surfaces because they have some really talented edge guys and linebackers that are kind of hybrid type players. They blitzed 54.3% of the time against Josh Allen and the Bills offense. And in weeks 1 through 5, you talked about the blitz rates. They're number one by a good margin. They had 6 sacks when they sent blitzes over the first 5 weeks, and that was 4th overall. So the Bills had to know going in that this was going to be in the game plan. And their game plan on the defensive side of the ball, and really in the offense when we get there later on, it reminded me of how the Dolphins with Brian Flores, who you talked about as the Vikings number 2 when blitz rate, how they used to tax Josh Allen on the defensive side of the ball. And Ulbrich, as you said, had that extra time to create some really exotic games and blitzes, and it really overwhelmed Josh. And so I'm flabbergasted on how they weren't prepared to have better answers versus the blitz of the Falcons.
Yeah, and I think a couple things can happen when that starts to happen, right? Which is, the quarterback starts to get sped up a little bit, right? And you're trying to look for an answer a little bit earlier, maybe than in the play than it's supposed to be there. And you see a ball that gets maybe thrown just a little bit, the timing is off. The other thing that happens is if you know they're going to blitz, and look, I think the Bills running back should be more involved in the passing game,
100%.
but it's a catch-22 because if you see that, you might have to keep them in. And you have to have max protect. And that's why you see people say, why isn't James Cook on the field? And I'm not disagreeing, but I'll say Ty Johnson's a good pass blocker. So you put him in the game, you keep him on the field. Now he can't go out for a pass. I would have loved to have seen Ty Johnson, James Cook more involved in the passing game. I think losing Dalton Kincaid for this game, not having him really hurt the team. I mean, this is a guy this is an answer against those blitzes. This is an answer to just getting to an open spot, being able to find your outlet receiver right there. He can stay in and chip. He can go out and he can catch a pass. Not having Dalton Kincaid was a big, big loss in this game. But then, I mean, Eric, they clearly had a game plan for Josh Palmer. Like Josh Palmer was a guy they were going to get the ball to. He had 2 catches for 60 yards before he got hurt, before halftime.
Yeah, take the lid off the defense a little bit and kind of back them off a little bit. That's the way it looked. When you come out and you throw that big bomb to him early, that is saying something. That is setting a tone. And I think I agree. I think he was supposed to have a big part in this game plan for their offense.
Yeah. And look, I don't want to make these unbelievably big picture judgments against this. Like we have Ryan in here in the chat. And thank you, Ryan, who says Brady's offenses don't have answers for exotic blitz packages. We saw it in the AFC Championship game. Look, I mean, that happened in the AFC Championship game. The 4th down was a big one, and that happened Monday night. But they play 17 games, and they've had answers for most of those times that they've happened, right? It's just it doesn't mean he doesn't have answers. Again, I want to go to, and I want to say, I want to give the other team credit too. They do things. They have coaches who, like Bills coaches, are paid a lot of money to figure out how to beat Josh Allen. I wish the Bills had more answers in this game. There's no doubt. I think the Bills failed in that department. I don't think it has to be an indictment on every game that they don't have answers.
Right. And if we're looking at some of the answers against the blitz over the last 2 years, we'll start with 2024. I had some stats I just posted on X a little while ago. When Josh Allen saw blitzes in 2024, minus play action I took out completely, you get an idea on where the ball would go in those situations. They were going to the wide receiver 62% of the time, 28th overall. Tight ends, as you said, Kincaid not having that outlet in blitz situations was huge because we always see him. They run that little RPO. Oh, the blitz is coming. I'm just going to throw it out on that wide receiver screen or tight end screen to Shakir or to Kincaid. And you saw it last year, 11th overall in those blitz situations, getting it to their tight ends. And then last year, they didn't get it to the running backs a lot. They were ranked 30th at 8.6%. But more importantly, look at some of these stats when we're looking at not just EPA per dropback or throw EPA, but how smart they were with the ball. Sack percentage, 4.1. That was 8th overall when teams blitzed them last year. Air yards per attempt, 6.7 yards there. That's 39th. 1.8 air yards to 6. That means negative 1.8. They threw it short of the sticks and had their guys get the first downs for them. And the negative play rate, another big number to pay attention to when comparing it to 2025. Negative play rate, 4.7%, 3rd overall. Now, this year, you see that they are throwing it a little bit more to those running backs in blitz situations. But this is where I want you guys to focus. The sack percentage is now 11.9%. That's 22nd, as opposed to 4.1 last year. And then Josh pressing it and pushing it down the field more. Air yards per attempt is 11.1. That is 1st overall. That means he is trying to press it down the field when he's getting blitz. Air yards to the sticks, positive 3.2. So over 3 yards past the first down marker, Josh has thrown it when the blitzes come. And that has led to a negative play rate of 15.2%, which is 22nd. So Josh is being affected by the blitz. And we saw it in this Falcons game. And they did some, interesting, exotic stuff. They have athleticism. They're fast. And the Bills didn't have the proper answers. But Josh also didn't get the ball out of his hands. He was pressing a little bit when there were guys open underneath at times when those blitzes came.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of times people say, run a screen pass, and I don't disagree, but they did try to run one and it got blown up.
Right?
I mean, it got blown up, and that's because, if you don't run it properly and a defense, recognizes it, that can be a real big problem as well. So look, to me, the interior pressure is what hurt the most in this game. It wasn't necessarily coming from the outside. The pocket seemed to collapse a little bit, and then Josh had to be on the move a little bit left, a little bit right. And, again, the Falcons running some stunts. I saw a couple times where, and I know you could show this, and you've showed this a couple times on videos, they're taking a couple of their edge guys and looping them around and coming through the center to take away Josh's running lane, right? Josh sees a running lane, he goes, but somebody's coming around right there. That's good football. And obviously the Bills didn't have, an answer for that. And I remember watching specifically on a couple of plays before the snap, I saw Osiris Torrance was tapping his helmet and pointing like, okay, right there, trying to communicate, sliding left. Like they're in the middle of trying to communicate what's happening there. So obviously I think to me, that shows me the Falcons were showing things that maybe the Bills had not seen and were not totally prepared for.
And I think when it comes to the specific front that you're talking about, when Torrance was doing that, it's something that Connor McGovern broke down in the film room with us last year on the Hollins touchdown against the Rams, because the Rams and Michael Hoyt run a lot of this load front. And we're actually seeing some of these fronts by the Bills defense with Solomon when he's in there and he's in that 2-point stance as that quasi D tackle. That's a load front. So what they do is half of the protection they're attacking with 3 guys to one side. Then they'll have that stand up linebacker type, Michael Hoyt, Javon Solomon, right in that like B gap area over the guard, and then an edge rusher. So they have a 5-man surface. And what Torrance is doing when he taps his helmet and points to that guy, he's saying, that's my guy. I think he's rushing. So he's in man protection. Mm-hmm. The tackle next to him, Spencer Brown's in man protection. And then the center, guard, and tackle onto the left side are in slide protection, where they have to work that 3-on-3. But in this game, it wasn't just a 3-on-3 slide. They were overloading. They were sending 3 on a nice little stunt, but then bringing a DB off the edge or a linebacker off the edge or a safety off the edge. And they're adding on because, like you said, this is the chess match. They like to keep Ty Johnson in there to block. Well, the Falcons said, you know what? If he's going to stay in the block, we're going to add on. The guy that's got him in man coverage, Jesse Bates, go rush the quarterback if he stays in. If he stays in the block someone, go rush the quarterback. So they were a step ahead. I think that extra week definitely helped.
Yeah.
But that load front blitz package, we saw it from the Saints. They got a sack with this load front. The Patriots got a sack with it last week. The Falcons got, I think, 2 or 3 sacks off of it, but multiple pressures by adding on and using that load front and really overwhelming not just the Bills' offensive line, but Josh Allen's psyche.
Yeah, and Ace is right when he comes in and says that teams are going to keep doing that to the Bills until they realize they can stop it. And here's what you would hope for, Ace, though, is the Bills bye week will hopefully help that, right? Well, they'll go back. The Bills will look at this, what Eric's talking about. The Bills will take a look at all of this. Aaron Kromer will say, okay, this is what's been troubling us. This is what has hurt us. And what you do in the bye week is you self-scout more than anything. You look at situations, you look at things teams are doing to you that you haven't been able to handle that well, and things you are handling well. And you say, this is what we're doing well, this is what we're not doing well. So I think, Ace, at least this gives the Bills a chance this week to get back and say, what can we do against that when we see it again? Because when teams show it against Carolina, Miami, whoever shows it next, Kansas City, they're going to hopefully, have those right answers for that. So no doubt about it. It's a great point about, how they used Johnson and what the defensive response was. And I think that gets to the criticism of they don't have early down separators, right, at wide receiver. And you need that. This is what Drake London was. Now, there's a lot of zone defense from the Bills. It was easy for Drake London to get into a spot and settle down. Holy cow, the numbers for Drake London, 16 targets, Eric, 16 targets. Yeah. Outside of Drake London, 0 catches by wide receivers. 0. He was their one guy. And once the Bills kind of took that away in the second half, they didn't have anywhere to go. For the Bills, they just didn't have anybody who was really getting open enough on the outside, quick enough for Josh Allen to get him the ball on those blitzes, and that was a problem. Right.
And again, I think that's part of the blame is Brady and the answers. we're having comments in here about, Brady said they got to get back to being more efficient. And that's early down, the runs, sticking to the run game, sticking to Cook. But that chess match, again, back to the Ty Johnson versus James Cook being on the field. Like, James Cook has to be on the field. We're not just talking run game. He's got to be involved in the pass game, especially when these teams want to blitz, because what the Bills did in the second half is they kept Dawson Knox in the backfield. They kept Ty Johnson in the backfield. And cool, now you're going to try to max protect it. Well, now, as you said, to your point, now you only have Tyrell Shavers, Keon Coleman, Palmer was hurt, and Shakir as the wide receivers going out for passes. So now you only have 3 options. And if they're struggling to separate and the play concepts are more isolated seam read type looks, because you're keeping in a tight end and a running back to block, that didn't work. And so now you have to start to think, okay, well, what if Cook's in there? And much like they did against the Ravens, we slip him out of the backfield, make it look like he's in a block, and then slip him across the formation and get an explosive play like they did against the Ravens. I think the grand scheme of this segment is James Cook needs to be on the field playing more in all situations, run pass game, high leverage situations, early
third
down.
and 1.
Yeah, 3rd and 1, all of those situations, because he is the most explosive threat outside of Josh Allen on the Bills offense.
Yeah. Do you remember after we did when we got together after the Ravens game and we showed all those little dump downs to Cook, and people were so mad that they didn't go downfield? They're like, but this is why they don't. This is why it works. And yet now we're sitting here, and I hope people are understanding maybe they should have done that more often in this game.
Right.
Just throw it down to him, because it would have worked against the blitz. Right. This is where my snarkiness comes out of me real quick. So we had I Am Sabbath. You highlighted his chat right there, but he also said earlier, I'll show it, the lack of criticism for the teams and created excuses why no one can take either of these guys seriously. Well, you obviously are, because you're still here and chatting with us, number one.
Yes,
plus we just spent the last 10 minutes criticizing the team. What else do you want? I don't really know, buddy. Thanks for watching. Holy cow.
Yeah, it can be frustrating at times. There's no doubt about it. And if you don't believe we're criticizing, I don't know what criticism is then, because we're literally telling you the things.
We're doing, but here's the difference. Okay. This is what I've found. And this is just a general point about fans and how they react, and doing this in radio and watching and social media. A lot of times people think criticism is just going out there and saying they suck, go fire everybody. That's not criticism. Our job, what I try to do, I think what Erik does better than almost anybody that I know who does this as a content creator, is to show you the reasons why. They're not excuses, they're reasons. This is what's happening. Why is it happening? That you can take that as protecting or lack of criticism. It's not. It's, hey, this guy has to do this better. Give this team credit. This is what they did. We're trying to educate people. Here's what we're doing.
Right. Yeah. Great point. So we talked about Cook, having him on the field more. Obviously, the injury to Palmer hurt the Bills offense. Kincaid not being there, which was disappointing to hear, because he was coming on, especially when we're talking that Patriots game and that recap we did last week. What other answers do you think going into this bye week, and the Bills are self-scouting, other things that Brady can do to help his quarterback, to make it easier on his quarterback, some easy button stuff that they can go to help the quarterback and the Bills offense?
I wonder what's going on with short yardage right now. It seems like they're getting, when Sean says too cute.
Yeah.
I don't know if he specifically, I know he's referring in a couple weeks ago, the Dawson Knox end around jet sweep. And then this happened with Elijah Moore. I think, to me, when I hear Sean say it, I think he's talking in general. Like, we don't have to outsmart ourselves, right? We have Josh Allen. We have James Cook. And sometimes the simplest answer, Erik, is the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yeah.
Have Josh Allen go forward. You can still run a tush push. You're allowed to. I know the Bills aren't doing that now because of what happened last year.
Yeah,
trying to give different looks. I get it. You can do it. You can give it to James Cook on 3rd and 1. I understand. Eric Wood made a really good point during the broadcast. He said he wasn't defending the play. He said, but probably what Joe Brady was thinking was, if you look like a tush push, you bring everybody in tackle to tackle right in front and in between the A gaps. And now that leaves everything open outside. If Elijah Moore takes it, maybe he's out the gate.
Seems pretty logical.
But that sometimes is just outsmarting yourself to me.
Yes.
And I think the answer to your question is, what can he do? I think just keep it a little easier. You know what I loved? First play of the game. They knew what they wanted to do. They went right to Josh Palmer. They had a great concept in place. Josh, first play action. And by the way, maybe that's something I'd like to see more. A little under center play action. Josh is very, very good at it. And if you can show the threat of play action with James Cook, who's running great, I think that can help open up a little bit more space.
Yeah, they can never run enough play action. And we saw a decent amount this game. And I thought the Falcons did a good job of covering it up. But regardless, I think they could still run it more. The part of that worried me in this game is when you run play action against a team like the Falcons with their speed, they're a little smaller on defensive side, but they have that speed. And so while you're trying to help your offensive line to get their hands on those undersized athletic guys, you saw one of the play action plays get blown up because one of those guys broke free, ran the arc, and sacked Josh. You're inviting the blitz that we're kind of talking about. You're inviting those guys to come up and commit to the run. And so again, it's a chess match, but they should be running that play action at a higher clip than they are in this game. And so back to your point about the tush push. Yeah, make them stop it. This isn't 2024. This isn't the last game of the year where it was shut down by the Kansas City Chiefs. Make them stop it first, especially once again, coming back to that front that they're playing. They're undersized. You have an elite offensive line. Make them stop it first. And at the very least, if you're not going to have Josh do it, then yeah, lean on your identity. That's your run game. That's your running back, James Cook. And they definitely can get back to square one with that because they did it really well in the first 4 games that yielded 4 wins. The last couple of games, they've kind of gotten away from it and having James Cook be the identity in the run and the pass game.
Yeah. And look, the team they're playing next after the bye, they shut out this Atlanta Falcons team, right? I mean, like they're gonna have some things dialed up as well. They might not be the heaviest blitzing team like Atlanta, but they're gonna have some things in store. This is gonna be on the Bills though. This week, this next game is about the Bills. It's about what they do. It's about their response. And yes, Carolina's gonna have some things up their sleeve for game planning wise, but the Bills have to get back to understanding who they want to be and be better at it.
No doubt about it. So let's flip the script on the defensive side of the ball. Let's talk about run defense. Every week, we're talking about run defense and some of the struggles. 32 rushes by the Falcons, 210 yards. 22 rushes of those 32 were on outside zone runs, 180 yards. It was crazy how they're able to get those explosives against the Bills. And what I find so interesting, and it's really a microcosm of this Bills defense as a whole, Sal, is how it's boom or bust. You talk about creating negative plays in the run game. The Bills created 9 rushes of 0 or negative yards against that Falcons offense. You can't, because of the big plays that happened, you wouldn't have realized that. 9. All right. How many explosive rushes did they give up? 3, 21, 22, and 81 yards. But those are the ones we remember. And so the thing that I'm starting to get worried about is the philosophy of this defense. And I'm not one to really lean into these type of things, but I do worry that, yes, I love the 111th mantra, Sal. I think it works. And you want them playing as a unit. But when you have 11 guys having to do their job consistently, play in and play out against 32 rushes with the type of explosive plays and athletes that these offenses have, all it takes is one guy to miss an assignment. And you're giving up 81-yard touchdowns and 22-yard touchdowns to teams like the Falcons.
Yeah, and look, tackling again, right? I mean, like a lot of those explosives come because you miss one tackle. And like you just said, because someone did their job and they're tying somebody up, and somebody did their job and tying somebody up. Somebody else got to make a tackle now, right? And you could all try to rally the football, but if you don't make that tackle, there goes Bijan Robinson for 81 yards. And there's a lot that goes into a lot of these things. It's a great stat there with the boomer bust. And I'll add, out of the 9 rushes for 0 or negative yards, 4 were tackles behind the line of scrimmage by Deone Walker. Right? I mean, he was pretty incredible, but you're right. And there were times where the Bills won their one-on-one. They won their matchup. The other thing that really hurt the defense was the penalties. I mean, the first play of the game, you get a turnover. Folks, I can't stress how much being in that stadium, Erik, being in that stadium on that sideline, I cannot stress to you how much that particular play changed the game from the beginning. Like the Bills get a turnover in the first play. It is the fans, the crowd, the Atlanta crowd. They got the ball first. They were shut down in a brief moment. The Bills crowd was going nuts. The Bills sideline was going nuts. All of a sudden you hear flag on the play, offsides, Greg Rousseau. And it just took everything back out of that. And all of a sudden now, here comes Atlanta. They have the ball now near midfield. And a few plays later, they get back to their game script and they score a touchdown. Then later, they have a tackle in the backfield. It's going to be a 2nd and 13, I think. But because Ed Oliver goes offsides, it's 1st and 5. You know what the next play was? Bijan Robinson for 81 yards. If it's not 1st and 5, they probably don't run that play to Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, it's disappointing, the missed tackles thing, because it's a fundamental thing. And you hear this coaching staff preach that. And you asked a great question at the presser to Babbage yesterday about tackling and how what defensive structure, single high versus two high, can affect tackling and how you tackle and the different, techniques tackling. And, it's something that they rep every single day. It's something that they, talk about every single day, and week in and week out, they're just missing tackles, especially from the safety position. The Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop are some of the worst tacklers on this team. 8 missed tackles for Taylor Rapp overall. 5 of those 8 are against the run. Bishop, 6 missed tackles. That's tied for 3rd overall on the Bills defense. 4 versus the rush. Whether they're in the box, which the Falcons put Cole Bishop, Taylor Rapp in the box and really stress the athleticism of those guys against Bijan and Pitts in that, whether they're in the box or they're playing post safety, single high, or they're playing 2 high safety looks, they're missing tackles. And that is one thing that I never would have thought we'd see from a Sean McDermott type defense, a Babbage defense, because that's the safety net. If you're going to do one good thing, it's going to be a tackler at the safety position. And Rapp was better at tackling last year. For whatever reason, he's not this year. He's struggling. DeMar Hamlin made some big plays as a tackler last year. Kind of his saving grace when he was in the starting lineup.
He wasn't making plays on the ball, but he tackled. I mean, granted, they were down the field and
a lot of points.
But you're right. I mean, he saved. I mean, Taylor Rapp, give him credit for a hustle play at the end of the half to save the touchdown, right? It's a hustle play, but at the same time, I mean, overall, the game just hasn't been there, and it's been a struggle for him, and he hasn't been tackling that well. I mean, I also asked Babbage, and we can play the clip on the tackling. The other thing I asked Babbage was about, look, everyone talks about lining up offsides, fundamentals, coaching. Like, these are things you're supposed to know when you're 5 years old, right? And like, take us into that, what it's looked like. It's like, look, we harp on it. We preach it. They go over it every day. It's not like they don't go over it and teach it and check it about lining up offsides, but guys still do it. There's an angle there and he lines up and he puts his hand in the neutral zone. And, it's got to fall on the player understanding that he can't do that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And so real quick, I'll play that question and clip from you to Babbage yesterday at the presser. Oh, hold on, get the volume there.
Tackling could be different if there's one high or two high, depending on how you're attacking angles, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, definitely space when you talk about tackling, how much space there is, what level we want to tackle at based on the angle that you're taking.
Right.
What hip we're approaching. There's a lot that goes into it. And depth from the ball carrier and depth from the line of scrimmage definitely comes into play.
And you can see, again, the safeties missing tackles from their single high post safety looks, some of the plays by Rapp in the box, at the point of attack, away from the point of attack. There's just too many issues when it comes to that. And the other thing, tackling has been the saving grace for guys like Taylor Rapp. But the other thing that we always talked about him was his pre-snap communication, making sure the coverages are set on the back end, working with Bernard in that regard. But we've seen several blown coverages in the secondary. So now I'm starting to think, okay, if he's not making tackles, he's missing tackles, and they're not getting set, and you're on the Shaq Thompson play where McDermott said that, one side of the defense was playing certain coverage, the other was playing another coverage. It led to the Bijan Robinson big play. Like, why is that happening to guys like Trey White, Taylor Rapp, when it comes to pre and post snap communication? Like, if he's not doing that right, I don't know what else I can say to really justify keeping him in the lineup. So I'll pose a question to you. 1, do you think they're going to make a change, in the bye week? 2, where would they go in the first place? And overall, like, what has been the issue with the safety, department, the safeties overall, and how can they move forward with these two guys if they stay in the lineup?
I have a hard time thinking they'll make a change because I know how much they believe in having guys who understand what they want to do. And if you were to go outside the organization, how that would take time for someone to come in and play, plus giving up assets. I'm just telling you, I just don't see that happening. It's possible. And Justin Simmons is still out there. I don't know what kind of money he's asking for.
I don't know if he can play. I don't know his injuries. I don't know.
Yeah, injuries. Right. Exactly. Right. There's a lot of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I mean, people keep bringing him up. Dude, he's been on 3 teams in the last year. There's a reason for that. People keep getting him and releasing him. So I'm not sure. To answer your question, though, honestly, I know fans don't want to hear this. I think Jordan Poyer is next man up if they do anything. It's Jordan Poyer. That's where they would turn to next. Now they could say, we're going to bring somebody in and then let Jordan play right now until somebody else is ready. But that's probably the next move you make if you make a move.
That's fair. And you know, Poyer did get some playing time. And I think I personally expected it, just knowing Poyer. So listen, I am not one to make these type of jumps to, hey, replace Rapp or replace Bishop. But when the run defense has suffered the way it has, and your answer is to play cover 3, to stack the box, put a safety down in the box, and you're actually worse at defending the run when you do that because of the lack of athleticism that a Taylor Rapp has. And you saw him miss a tackle there when he was in the box running like horizontally, not necessarily from the post. There aren't many things I can say to justify keeping him in the lineup. So now I'm listening to a lot of fans and what they're saying, but I do agree with you. Do I think they make a move? Probably not. If they were to, I think maybe there's a rotation that comes in where now, okay, maybe Poe gets in there a little bit.
I do like, here you go. K. Omari, Hancock trial by fire. I mean, look, that's an option. And we have not seen Jordan Hancock playing yet at safety. And I wouldn't be opposed to seeing what this kid has.
I liked what he did in the preseason. And again, the play that it kind of resonates with me from the preseason, his play, but also some of the stuff I just showed you with that film, running from the post safety position and filling that alley, unlike what Cole Bishop did on several of those plays. And so I think he can do that. He's got that physicality and mindset. Is he ready from the shoulders up? I don't know. But I mean, that is trial by fire. I would not be against that. I need to see something change, whether it's the personnel or how they're using these guys, because there's just too many big plays happening at the expense of your safety net, your safeties. And so with that said, you talked about Drake London and how big a game he had. And the only target for the offense in Penix. Some of the zone coverages that they were eating up, a lot of cover 3, as I said early on, they switched to more cover 1 and man coverage in the second half. I don't know if it's just me, but I just feel like the zone defense this year has not been as solid. When we're talking like spacing wise and distribution wise. It seems like there's some kind of growing pains happening or some kind of issues with their zone coverages, because quarterbacks are seeing the coverage from pre to post snap too easily and getting the ball out and not allowing that pass rush to really get home. You saw some nice pass rushes at times by Bosa, Rousseau, but because the ball was out, because the quarterback saw the coverage so well, especially zone, they weren't effective at bringing that quarterback down.
Yeah. Look, I don't think Taron Johnson's had his best year, right? And he's getting a little bit older. I'm not saying that he's over the hill and he can't play, but maybe you have to make an adjustment on how his zone defense works, you know, as it was in years past, next to a guy like Matt Milano, who has not been on the field, Shaq Thompson, who fills in, who's getting a little bit older, right? Terrell Bernard, one thing that I've found very interesting, Eric, and maybe we can dive into this a little bit later. And I should have probably given you a heads up. I was thinking about this because Eric Wood brought it up too in the broadcast. Like, they play Terrell Bernard near the line of scrimmage a lot, and that's not his strength. His strength is space. His strength is space.
In the film room, we talked about that.
Yeah, his strength is moving left to right and being able to make plays, seeing the ball and getting places. When you put Terrell Bernard, an undersized linebacker, near the line of scrimmage, by the way, folks, there's nothing wrong with having an undersized linebacker because those guys can make plays sideline to sideline. But what happens is you are undersized and you get big guys on you, it's harder for you to get off. If you play close to the line of scrimmage, that can happen more often. So I think a lot of that is just baked into all that.
There's no doubt. And it's something that if you guys are interested in some of the issues that Bernard has faced, tune into the film room tonight at 7 p.m. because we broke down several of the plays that I talked about. Cover 3, the Bills gave up 6 explosives in cover 3, and Terrell Bernard was at the center of a lot of those passes to Drake London and whatnot. And one, he's not moving the same. And so maybe that has something to do with how they're using him. But even in the run game, like they had him up near the line of scrimmage, mugging the A gap, having him go one-on-one with a guard. And that is not his strong suit. He's not a stack and shed guy. He's not a big guy. Like you said, that is your answer to stopping the zone run. I didn't like that. Now, if you put Dorian on the line of scrimmage or Shaq, that like makes a little more sense, but Bernard is not that guy. And so I didn't like some of their defensive structure answers for the run game, but also, again, when it comes to the coverage, there's some spacing issues going on. I don't know if there's some kind of disconnect going on. I can't put my finger on it. I don't think the coverages are too complex. I don't think that what they're asking in a lot of these plays are too complex because a lot of it is just simple cover three, especially spot drop cover three. But for some reason, from pre to post snap, that spacing and those zone holes, those windows are so large right now. And the Bills aren't getting guys to the ball to make plays on the ball or to even just, rally and tackle short of the sticks. So just too many easy passes into that second level, especially when they're playing cover three.
Yeah, and I wonder, and a lot of it's coming right over the linebackers, right before the safeties, right? I mean, that was an issue in preseason, I noticed too. And I'm like, oh, it's preseason, right? But it's showing up now here in the regular season. I do wonder if the safeties, because we talk a lot about them, if it's just, hey, I don't want to get beat, I don't want to get beat, I don't want to get beat deep, right? And it's been so ingrained in everybody around the NFL now, but especially the Bills over the last several years, don't get beat with explosive plays. The Bills rarely get beat over the top. They really do. They really rarely get beat over the top.
Right.
But part of that is they just say, we're not going to beat over the top. Maybe it's time, Eric, to say, if you're going to go over the top, you're going to have to complete the pass. I'm going to make sure I'm a little bit closer to the ball every so often.
Right. You got to restrict airspace. And like I said, the biggest change from first to second half in that game against the Falcons was instead of playing those single high cover three looks, they went to a little more man coverage. And man coverage not only helps the pass game, but it also helps put guys in and around the line of scrimmage. Hey, if you're going to have two tight end sets, which the Falcons ran a bunch of, and have a fullback or a tight end in the backfield, now you're bringing more guys into the box playing man coverage. And it's something they did a bunch of in this game in the second half. And you saw Taron Johnson make a play on the ball. You saw guys in position shutting down and restricting airspace when it comes to the passing game. And so I know, Hairston is probably at the center of that, and maybe in a few weeks if he can get healthy, but there's some changes that need to be had. And I think that, when we're talking just big picture stuff, first half man coverage in this game against the Falcons, 18.9%. Second half, they played it 37.9%. So maybe that is one of the answers, getting guys up to help stop the run, but also restricting that airspace and that quick game, which I said, they're seeing these pictures too easily and completing at such a high clip.
Yeah. And I wonder if they do make schematic changes like that in the bye week, right? You get guys healthier, you get a couple guys back. We won't dive so much into it today. This will be for next week, but I do think that Michael Hoyt is somebody that they have a plan for to help out with a lot of this stuff we're talking about. He's not the save all, going to make the defense, the early 2000s Ravens, not what I'm saying, but I think he's going to allow other people to fit in their roles better.
No doubt. And in this final segment, I want to bring in Deone Walker. He's our tapped in player. Presented by Thin Man Brewery. Deone Walker, I thought he had a great game.
Yeah.
Did he have some downs as well? Yeah, he got washed out a couple times by some combo blocks, but overall, 5 tackles, 1 pressure, 4 stops. He was in the backfield a bunch. He dominated in one-on-one situations, especially in that second, third, and fourth quarters when the Bills were bringing Dorian Williams or Shaq Thompson down against those zone runs and allowed Deone Walker to not get double teamed. You're not, with his length and size and quickness, he's going to win more times than not against single blocks versus reach blocks. And he had a bunch of stops in this game.
Yeah, he was terrific. And he has been terrific for the most part. There's been some ups and downs, as you said. He's a rookie, but hey, this could be a real find as a 4th round draft pick, right? Just a guy who a year ago could have been a 2nd round pick, but he went back to school and he didn't have as good of a year. And then they realized at this pro day, hey, he's got a bit of a back issue that he didn't realize. And that's what maybe caused him to not have as good of a year. Well, he started off looking pretty darn good, and so far it's carried through. So I'm excited about Deone Walker and not only the present, but the future.
Yeah, he leads all rookie D tackles overall with 13 tackles, and he leads all rookies in defensive stops. He has a 12.4% run stop percentage rate, which is 3rd overall among all D tackles. And his average depth of tackle is 0.5 yards, which is pretty good. He's been great, especially if we're talking now, the injury to Daquan Jones. Daquan hasn't played as much nose tackle because of Ed Oliver's injury, but McDermott was right, and I agree with him when he said that Daquan, losing him in the warm-up stages of that game to a popped calf really put the Bills in a bind overall, especially when you consider how good he's been playing and how consistent he has been at the point of attack.
And there's nothing you can do about it once that happens at warmups. Just so everybody knows, 90 minutes before the game, you declare your inactive list. So basically the game started. So it's just like losing somebody after the first or second play of the game. If you lose somebody in pregame warmups after the inactive list is declared, you can't make any changes.
So as we said, Deone Walker is our Thin Man Brewery tapped in player of the game. Big things are brewing at Thin Man. The fan favorite Pils Mafia is getting a bold rebrand, and it's bringing him back up, introducing Mafia Light. It's a new tailgate essential. Hits different with just 3.5% ABV and only 80 calories per 12-ounce can. Drinks like water with notes of beer. We appreciate Thin Man joining us here on Turf to Tape for the year. We got some fun things happening with them, with some live podcast stuff on scene in Western New York. I'm excited to do some of that stuff with you, Sal, here for Thin Man Brewery. So once again, thank you to Thin Man for joining us. And thank you to Deone Walker, because aside from him, it was difficult to pick a guy that, really played all out and had a really good game, because for most of the game and most of the players in this game, it was there were some rough times against the Falcons in this loss.
And we can't pick James Cook every week, right? I mean, can't do that.
Yeah.
And I would say if he had played a whole game, maybe Joshua Palmer sneaks in there.
Yeah, that's disappointing, because this was the game that was really relegated for him. This is why they went out and got him. And like you said at the top, I think they were trying to set the tone for him to have a big game. So with that said, the Bills lose their second straight, this time to the Atlanta Falcons, 24-14. Sal, before we get out of here, let everyone know, one, where they can find you on social, on YouTube. And secondly, what's the schedule look like for you this week?
All right. So at Sal Sports, as always, I'm actually going to be on in about an hour on WGR. If you want to listen to me, I'm going to be joining Chopin the Bulldog. All right. Because, well, if you're watching live, it's 4:00 now here in Buffalo. Hey, real quick, tomorrow night, Matt Bove and I are doing It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. We're going to be live over at the new Buffalo Old Brewery Beer Garden on East Lovejoy. So come on by. 12/21. So it should be a really good time there. So come on by. I just want to say hi to people. If you want to come by and watch us, we're going to be live on East Lovejoy at the Buffalo Old Brewery. And then really this weekend is, you know what I'm doing this weekend, Eric? I'm going to Syracuse Pitt. I'm going up to the game.
Sweet.
Pitt at Syracuse. It's homecoming, and the Bills are off. So I'm going to go up to watch the game and bring in the wife and kid.
Awesome. Well, you enjoy some time off. You enjoy this bye week. You deserve it. You're a hardworking guy. It's very difficult to get our schedules to match up. And but we're glad we're able to hammer this out for you guys to recap that game against the Falcons. On behalf of Turf to Tape, I'm Eric Turner. That's Sal Capaccio. We'll see you next week.